She vanished after one night with the Billionaire CEO. 3 months later, he discovered why. Olive's hands trembled against Dalton Pierce's chest as the charity gala's storage room door locked behind them. Months of loaded glances finally igniting into desperate kisses and whispered promises. By sunrise in his hotel suite, she'd given him everything: her body, her carefully guarded heart, pieces of herself she'd sworn to protect. Then, she dressed in silence and disappeared into the Chicago morning. Now, her phone buzzes with his 100 unanswered calls, while her hands cradle a secret that could destroy them both. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's rewind 6 weeks to the moment everything began. Olive Smith stood behind the counter of Pages and Purpose, her family's bookstore, watching afternoon light slant through the tall windows. At 31, she'd transformed this struggling shop into something her father would barely recognize. Half bookstore, half cultural hub, with author readings 3 nights a week and a thriving poetry workshop for local teens. The vintage shelves still held her father's carefully curated collection, but now they shared space with contemporary voices, diverse authors, books that reflected the Englewood community surrounding them. She ran her fingers along a spine of "Their eyes were watching God," remembering her father reading it aloud when she was 12. He'd built this place with his hands and his dreams. 3 years ago, when he died and her mother wanted to sell, Olive had made a choice that changed everything. Jordan Lopez burst through the door, arms full of flowers for tonight's event. Her best friend and bookstore manager had been her anchor through every storm. "These are gorgeous. The author's going to love them. If we can afford them." Olive glanced at the spreadsheet open on her laptop. "We can, barely. But tonight's grand announcement will help." Jordan arranged the flowers with practiced ease. "You're going to Pages and Purpose's biggest night. Try to look excited." "I am excited. And terrified. Do you know how many literacy organizations applied for the Pierce Technologies Foundation grant? 57. We're one of 5 winners. Because your proposal was brilliant. Because this place matters." Jordan paused, a knowing smile crossing her face. "And because you'll finally meet the infamous Dalton Pierce." Olive rolled her eyes. "Billionaire tech CEOs aren't exactly my type." "When's the last time you had a type? Or a date?" "I'm perfectly happy alone." "You're perfectly terrified of not being alone." Jordan's voice softened. "Peter was 3 years ago, Olive. You're allowed to move on." Peter Townsend, her ex-fiancé who'd given her an ultimatum: choose the bookstore or choose our future. She'd chosen her father's legacy, her own authenticity. He'd chosen someone less complicated within 6 months. "I have moved on, into a life I actually want." Olive closed her laptop with more force than necessary. "Now, help me figure out what to wear to this gala thing. I have exactly one dress that might work, and it's from 2019. 4 hours later, Olive stepped into the Four Seasons ballroom and immediately wanted to leave. Crystal chandeliers dripped light onto Chicago's elite, women in designer gowns, men in tailored tuxedos, everyone holding champagne like it was water. Her borrowed dress suddenly felt obvious, her presence an intrusion. "You belong here," Jordan whispered, reading her mind. "Your work matters just as much as their money." The Pierce Technologies Foundation banner stretched across the stage, sleek and modern. Olive found her assigned seat near the front, hyper-aware of the wealth surrounding her. The woman beside her wore diamonds that could fund Pages and Purpose for a year. Then the lights dimmed, and Dalton Pierce took the stage. Olive had seen photos, of course. Business magazines loved him. 40 years old, self-made billionaire, the man who'd revolutionized artificial intelligence. But photographs hadn't prepared her for the reality. He moved with quiet authority, his tailored suit emphasizing broad shoulders and a lean frame. Dark hair, sharp jawline, eyes that seemed to assess everything at once. But it was his voice that surprised her. Deep, warm, filling the ballroom without effort. "Thank you for being here tonight. I'm going to keep my remarks brief because honestly, speeches at these things are usually pretty boring." Scattered laughter. Olive found herself leaning forward. "I grew up in a neighborhood a lot like Englewood, where 3 of tonight's grant recipients work. My mother cleaned office buildings, sometimes the very buildings my company now occupies. She worked 3 jobs to keep us fed, and most nights I was alone. The library saved me. Not because of internet access or quiet study space, though those mattered, but because of books. His delivery shifted, less corporate, more personal. There was this librarian, Miss Chen, who always knew exactly what I needed to read. When I was angry about being poor, she gave me Invisible Man. When I felt invisible myself, she gave me Their Eyes Were Watching God. When I wanted to understand why the world worked the way it did, she gave me James Baldwin. Those books didn't just entertain me, they showed me different possibilities. They taught me I could become someone different than circumstances suggested. Olive's throat tightened. He was quoting the exact books that had shaped her own life. Education isn't just about schools and test scores. It's about access to ideas, to stories, to seeing yourself reflected in pages and possibilities. The 5 organizations we're honoring tonight understand this. They're not just running programs, they're changing lives, so let's celebrate them. The applause was thunderous, but Olive barely heard it. Something in his delivery felt authentic, not performative, like he actually meant every word. The grant presentations followed. Each organization called to the stage, checks awarded, photos taken. When Pages and Purpose was announced, Olive walked up on shaking legs. Dalton handed her the oversized check, and their fingers brushed. The contact lasted maybe 2 seconds, but electricity shot up her arm. His eyes met hers, dark, intense, assessing. Congratulations, your proposal was exceptional. Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. The poetry workshop for teens especially. That takes real commitment. He'd actually read her proposal, not just skimmed it, read it. They deserve space to find their voices. They're lucky to have you. He held her gaze a beat too long, then released her hand. She returned to her seat, pulse racing for reasons that had nothing to do with public speaking. After the presentations, the ballroom opened for a reception. Olive grabbed champagne she didn't want and tried to look comfortable. Jordan had left early for a family obligation, leaving Olive alone in a sea of strangers. She was studying the exit when a voice came from behind her. Running away already? She turned to find Dalton Pierce, 2 champagne flutes in hand. Up close, he was even more devastating. Sharp jaw, eyes that actually listened, a presence that made the crowded room shrink. Thinking about it, she admitted, these aren't really my scene. Mine either, honestly, but they're necessary. He offered her a fresh glass. You looked like you needed a replacement. She accepted it, trying not to notice how her fingers tingled when they brushed his again. Don't you have donors to schmooze? Probably, but I'd rather talk to you. He nodded toward the gallery. Walk with me? She should say no, should make polite excuses and leave. Instead, she found herself walking beside him through the art-lined corridor, acutely aware of his height, the clean scent of his cologne, the way other guests stepped aside to let him pass. Your speech surprised me, she said finally. I expected corporate platitudes. You sounded like you actually care. I do care. Education access isn't just a tax write-off for me. Isn't it, though? The challenge escaped before she could stop it. Your company's worth billions. This foundation is what, 0.5% of that? It's a rounding error that buys good PR. Instead of taking offense, he smiled. Actually smiled, like her directness pleased him. You're not wrong about the math, but you're wrong about the motivation. My mother died 5 years ago, still cleaning buildings at 63 because she never had the opportunities that library gave me. This foundation is how I honor that. The vulnerability in his admission caught her off guard. I'm sorry about your mother. Thank you. What about you? Your proposal mentioned your father built Pages and Purpose. 30 years ago, he died 3 years back, and you left a corporate marketing career to save it. He had read her proposal thoroughly. My mother wanted to sell. My fiancé wanted me to let it go, relocate for his job. Everyone thought I was crazy. Were you? Probably. The bookstore was failing. I gave up 6 figures in stock options, and my fiancé left me for someone less complicated. She surprised herself with the honesty. But I'd do it again. That bookstore is my father's legacy, and books saved me too. They showed me I could be more than everyone expected. What did everyone expect? Smart girl from Englewood. Get a degree, get out, don't look back. Marry well, live in Lincoln Park, forget where I came from. She met his eyes. I didn't want to forget. I wanted to honor it. That takes courage. Or stubbornness. My mother still hasn't decided which. They'd reached the end of the gallery, standing before floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago skyline. The city spread below them, lights glittering like fallen stars. Can I ask you something? Dalton's voice was quieter now. The poetry workshop. Why teenagers specifically? Because that's when I needed it most. 15, angry at the world, convinced I didn't matter. My English teacher gave me Langston Hughes, and suddenly I had language for everything I felt. She traced patterns on her champagne flute. Those kids deserve what I had, space to be messy and brilliant and heard. You're remarkable. He said it simply, like stating fact. You don't know me. I know you walked away from security to choose authenticity. I know you see education as transformation, not transaction. I know you're passionate about giving others what saved you. His eyes held hers. That's enough to be remarkable. Heat crept up her neck. She wasn't used to being seen this way, not for her achievements, but for her choices. You're good at this. At what? Making people feel special. Is that a billionaire skill? It's an interested-in-you skill. He took her empty glass, set both flutes on a nearby table. Coffee tomorrow, so we can continue this conversation? I don't think coffee with you would be safe, Mr. Pierce. Dalton, and probably not. Come anyway. She should say no. Every instinct screamed caution, but something in his gaze, genuine curiosity, real interest, an intensity that matched her own, made her reckless. Where? Limitless Coffee, State Street, 10 in the morning? I'll think about it. His smile was slow, dangerous. You'll come. Confident. Hopeful. He pulled out his phone. Give me your number, in case you lose the card I'm about to give you. She rattled off digits, watched him type them in. Her phone buzzed immediately, a text from an unknown number. Dalton Pierce. In case you change your mind about being safe, tomorrow, 10 a.m., I'll be the one who can't stop thinking about your question. She saved his number, fingers trembling slightly. When she looked up, he was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. What question? Whether my foundation is genuine or performative. Want to give you a better answer. One that does justice to both of us. Someone called his name, a board member needing his attention. He squeezed her hand briefly, then disappeared into the crowd. Olive stood alone by the windows, staring at her phone, wondering what she'd just agreed to. Have you ever met someone and felt that instant, undeniable pull, the kind that thrills and terrifies you at once? Tell me your story in the comments, let me know where you're watching from, and hit subscribe if you're already hooked on Olive and Dalton's journey. The Uber ride home passed in a blur. Olive stared out the window at Chicago's nighttime streets, replaying every moment. His voice, his eyes, the way he'd listened like her words actually mattered. Her phone buzzed again. I meant what I said. About you being remarkable. Sleep well, Olive. She typed and deleted 3 responses before settling on. Good night, Dalton. In her apartment above Pages and Purpose, she hung the borrowed dress carefully and climbed into bed. But sleep was impossible. She kept seeing his face, hearing his voice, feeling the electric jolt of his touch. This was dangerous. This was reckless. This was exactly what she'd sworn not to do. Get swept up, lose herself, forget the hard lessons Peter had taught her. But Dalton Pierce wasn't Peter Townsend. That much was already clear. The question was, did that make him more dangerous or less? She fell asleep with her phone on the pillow beside her, his last text glowing in the darkness like a promise. Morning came too quickly. Olive changed outfits 4 times, finally settling on jeans and a simple blouse. Casual but not trying too hard. She told herself she was just being polite. Networking, building a relationship with a major donor. The lies tasted bitter even in her own mind. Jordan appeared at 9:30, took one look at her and grinned. You're going. It's just coffee. With a billionaire who looked at you last night like you were the only person in the room. You left early. You didn't see. I saw enough before I left, and I know you. Jordan handed her a to-go mug. Drink this first. You'll need the caffeine for whatever you're walking into. I'm not walking into anything. Sure you're not. Text me after? There won't be anything to text about. Jordan just laughed. Limitless Coffee occupied a corner of State Street, all exposed brick and reclaimed wood. Olive arrived 5 minutes late, deliberately, and found Dalton already there. He'd claimed the quiet corner table, and he was dressed in jeans and a dark Henley that made him look younger, more approachable, but equally magnetic. He stood when she approached. "You came. I almost didn't." "Glad you did." He pulled out her chair. "I took a chance on your coffee order. Black, right?" She stared at the cup in front of her seat. "How did you—" "At the gala, you didn't add anything. Good observation or lucky guess, take your pick." The fact that he'd noticed such a small detail made her pulse quicken. She sat, wrapped her hands around the warm mug. "Lucky guess." "We'll go with that." He settled across from her, and for a moment they just looked at each other. The morning light through the windows caught in his dark eyes, and Olive felt the pull again, that magnetic draw she couldn't explain or resist. "So," he said, "your turn. Ask me anything." "Anything?" "I made a promise last night to answer your question honestly. The floor is yours." She considered him over the rim of her cup. "Fine. The foundation. How do you ensure it's not just tax-advantaged philanthropy? How do you know you're actually making a difference instead of just making yourself feel better?" "Blunt. I like it." He leaned back, considering. "Honest answer, I don't always know. That terrifies me. We can throw money at problems, track metrics, measure outcomes. But real impact, that's harder to quantify. That's why I read every grant proposal personally, why I visit programs, why I'm having coffee with you instead of just wiring money and walking away." "You read all 57 proposals?" "Every single one. Took me 3 weekends, but yes." "Why?" "Because if someone cares enough to do the work, I should care enough to understand it. And because metrics don't tell you what matters. Your proposal, the way you described that 16-year-old girl who wrote her first poem about being invisible and then felt seen, that's impact. That's why we do this." Olive's throat tightened. He was talking about Keisha, one of her poetry students. She'd included that story because it captured everything she believed about the power of words. Most donors don't care about those details. I'm not most donors. My mother cleaned offices at night so I could have a shot at something better. I remember what it feels like to be invisible. I never want someone else to feel that way if I can help prevent it. They talked for 2 hours. About books, about Chicago neighborhoods, about the complexity of doing good without causing harm. He told her about growing up poor, the guilt of having more than his mother ever did, walking the halls of buildings she once cleaned and wondering what she'd think of who he'd become. She told her about her father teaching her to love books before she could read, about choosing the bookstore over security, about the weight of legacy and the fear of failure. "Do you regret it?" he asked. "Giving up your career?" "Never. I miss the steady paycheck sometimes. I don't miss feeling like a cog in someone else's machine." She traced patterns on her empty cup. "I'd rather build something meaningful and struggle than coast on someone else's vision. Does that sound naive?" "It sounds brave. Or stupid. There's a difference." His voice was quiet, intense. Stupid is doing something without understanding the cost. Brave is understanding the cost and choosing it anyway. You knew what you were giving up. You chose purpose over prestige. That's the opposite of stupid. No one had ever framed it that way. Peter had called her selfish. Her mother called her impractical. But Dalton saw it as courage. "What about you?" She met his eyes. "Do you regret the cost of building your empire?" Something flickered across his face. Pain, quickly masked. "Sometimes. Success has a price. I paid it willingly, but that doesn't mean it didn't hurt." "What did you lose?" "The ability to trust easily. Time I should have spent with my mother. A relationship that might have worked if I'd been more present." He shook his head. "My ex-fiancée left me 5 years ago. Said I was married to my company, that there was no room for her. She wasn't entirely wrong." The vulnerability in his admission stunned her. This wasn't billionaire armor. This was a man admitting his failures. "I'm sorry." "Don't be." She deserved someone who could give her more than leftover attention. "I wasn't that person then." His eyes found hers again. "I'm trying to be different now." The weight of his gaze made her breath catch. They were venturing into dangerous territory, the conversation shifting from professional to painfully personal. We should probably go, she said, even though every part of her wanted to stay. Probably. He didn't move. Can I see you again? Dalton, just coffee or lunch, or let me visit Pages and Purpose, see the poetry workshop I funded. He smiled slightly. I promise I'm genuinely interested in your programming, and not just using it as an excuse. That's exactly what someone using it as an excuse would say. Fair point. So let me be direct. I want to see you again, Olive. Not as a donor, not as networking. Because I haven't had a conversation this good in years. Because you challenge me and surprise me, and you don't treat me like I'm anything other than a person. Because when you talk about your work, you light up in ways that make me want to understand what creates that light. Her heart hammered against her ribs. This is a bad idea. Probably. You're a billionaire CEO. I run a community bookstore. We're from completely different worlds. I grew up in a world a lot more like yours than the one I live in now, and I've never felt more like myself than I have this morning, talking to you. She should walk away, should protect herself, should remember every lesson Peter taught her about losing yourself in someone else's orbit. Instead, she heard herself say, "The poetry workshop meets Tuesday evenings, 7 o'clock. You can observe, but the kids will probably interrogate you." His answering smile transformed his face. "I'll bring books. Icebreaker." That might actually work. They walked out together into the bright Chicago morning. On the sidewalk, she turned to say goodbye and stepped off the curb without looking. A taxi horn blared. Dalton's arm shot around her waist, yanking her back against his chest, time suspended. His heartbeat thundered against her back. His breath warmed her hair. His arm locked around her like steel. His hand splayed across her hip. "You okay?" His voice was rough in her ear. She could only nod, acutely aware of every point of contact. Heat radiated from him, solid and safe and dangerous all at once. She should step away, should create distance, should stop feeling like her entire body was waking up after years of sleep. "Thank you," she managed. "Anytime." The word hummed through her. They separated slowly, awkwardly. The spot where his hand had been burned like a brand. She gestured vaguely toward the direction of her car. "Yeah, me too." Neither moved. "Tuesday," she said finally. "I'll be there." He watched her with an intensity that made her knees weak. "Be careful, Olive." She wasn't sure if he meant crossing streets or something else entirely. The walk to her car took forever. She could feel him watching, feel the weight of his attention like a physical touch. When she finally glanced back, he was still standing there, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable. She drove back to Pages and Purpose in a daze. Jordan took one look at her face and said, "Oh, you're in trouble." "I'm not in anything." "You're in something. And it's written all over you." Olive collapsed into the chair behind the counter. "He's coming to observe the poetry workshop Tuesday. The billionaire wants to hang out with teenagers and poetry. Sure, that's definitely about the programming. Or it might be. And you might be in denial." Her phone buzzed. "Dalton? Made it back without any more near-death experiences?" She smiled despite herself. "Barely. Chicago traffic is terrifying. Almost as terrifying as honest conversation. Way less terrifying than that." "Good. See you Tuesday. Thank you for this morning. It meant more than you know." She stared at the message, thumb hovering over the keyboard. What was she doing? This man was dangerous to every wall she'd built, every protection she'd constructed. "Thank you for actually listening. Not many people do. Then they're idiots. Your words are worth hearing." Jordan read over her shoulder and whistled low. "Oh, honey, you're not in trouble. You're in free fall." And the terrifying part? Jordan was absolutely right. Chapter 2. Tuesday arrived too quickly and not fast enough. Olive spent the day second-guessing everything, her outfit choice, her decision to invite him, the wisdom of letting this man into her world. The poetry workshop was her sacred space, where her kids felt safe enough to be vulnerable. What if Dalton disrupted that? What if his presence changed the energy? What if she'd invited him because she wanted to see him again, more than she wanted to admit? The teens started arriving at 6:45, their usual loud, chaotic selves. Keisha, the 16-year-old Olive had written about in her grant proposal, dropped her backpack with a thud. "Miss Olive, Marcus said my poem about my dad was trash. Tell him he's wrong." "Your poem wasn't trash," Marcus defended himself. "I said the ending was weak. There's a difference." "Same thing." "Actually, constructive criticism is how we grow," Olive interjected. "Marcus, can you explain specifically what about the ending didn't work for you?" Before Marcus could respond, the door chimed. Dalton walked in carrying a bag of books and looking decidedly out of place in his expensive casual clothes. Every head swiveled toward him. "Who's that?" Keisha stage whispered. "Everyone. This is Dalton Pierce. He's observing tonight. Mr. Pierce, these are the poets who are going to change the world." Dalton set the bag down, completely unfazed by their scrutiny. "Call me Dalton, and I brought gifts. Fair trade for letting me crash your workshop." He pulled out books, diverse voices, contemporary poets, beautiful editions. The kids descended like sharks, examining covers and flipping through pages. "Yo, this is Dan Smith." Marcus held up a poetry collection reverently. "How'd you know?" "Miss Olive mentioned you all appreciate poets who don't hold back. Seemed like a good match." Dalton caught Olive's eye, and she realized he'd asked her about the workshop, had actually listened and remembered. The session started with their usual check-in, sharing something from the week, good or bad. When it was Keisha's turn, she surprised everyone. "I submitted my poem about my dad to that contest Miss Olive told me about, the one for young writers." The group erupted in cheers. Olive's throat tightened with pride. "Keisha, that's incredible. When did you decide?" "Last week, after you said I should stop hiding my words." Keisha glanced at Dalton, suddenly shy. "It's about my dad being in prison, how I miss him, but I'm also angry at him. Is that weird for poetry?" "That's exactly what poetry's for," Dalton said quietly. "The complicated stuff we can't say any other way. Your courage in writing that matters more than whether you win." Keisha beamed. They worked on a new exercise, writing from a place of contradiction, holding two opposing truths at once, love and anger, hope and fear, pride and shame. The room fell silent except for scratching pens and occasional sighs. Olive circulated, reading over shoulders, offering encouragement. She was so focused on her students that she almost forgot Dalton was there. Almost. Every time she glanced up, she found him watching, not her, but the kids, with an expression she couldn't quite name. Something like wonder, something like grief. When sharing time came, Marcus volunteered first. His poem about loving and resenting his neighborhood hit like a punch. Keisha went next, raw words about her father that left several kids wiping their eyes. One by one, they shared their contradictions, their complicated truths, the messy reality of being young and black and trying to figure out who they were. Dalton listened to every word, didn't interrupt, didn't offer platitudes, just witnessed their brilliance with complete attention. Afterward, as the kids packed up, Marcus approached Dalton. "So you're like rich, right? That's why you can afford all these books?" "Marcus," Olive started, but Dalton held up a hand. "Yeah, I am. Is that weird?" "Kind of. Most rich people don't come to Englewood, unless they're trying to gentrify or whatever." "Fair point. I grew up not far from here, actually. Different neighborhood, same struggles. Books saved me. Figured I should help make sure other kids have access to the same thing that saved me." Marcus considered this. "That's actually kind of cool. Most people get money and forget where they came from. Some days I wish I could forget. Most days I'm grateful I can't." Something in his honesty reached the kids. They clustered around him, peppering him with questions about his company, about success, about how he went from poor to billionaire. He answered everything with surprising candor, the luck involved, the privilege of timing, the people who'd helped him, the sacrifices he'd made. "Did you always know you'd be successful?" Keisha asked. "No, I was terrified most of the time. Still am, honestly. Fear doesn't go away. You just learn to act despite it." "Like writing poems even when you think they're trash?" "Exactly like that." By the time the last kid left, it was almost 9. Olive locked the door behind them and turned to find Dalton helping her stack chairs. "You don't have to do that." "I know, but you've been on your feet for 2 hours, and I'm perfectly capable of lifting chairs." He set another one on the stack. "Those kids are extraordinary." "They are, and you were good with them." I wasn't sure you would be. Why? Because billionaires don't understand real people? His tone was teasing, but she caught the edge beneath. Because most people who donate money want to feel good about helping without actually engaging with the messy reality you engaged. This is the messy reality that matters. Spreadsheets and metrics don't capture what I saw tonight. That's why I had to be here. They finished stacking chairs in comfortable silence. Olive gathered scattered papers, acutely aware of him moving through her space. The bookstore felt different with him in it. Smaller, more intimate, charged with possibility. Coffee? She offered. I make a decent pot and I owe you for the books. You don't owe me anything, but yes. Her office was tiny, barely room for a desk, the vintage couch her father had refused to throw away, shelves crammed with paperwork and more books. She started the ancient coffee maker while Dalton examined her bulletin board covered in photos of students, letters from former workshop participants, a faded picture of her father on opening day. That's him. Dalton pointed at her father's image. Opening day 30 years ago, he looked so young. She studied the photo, her father's proud smile, the hope in his eyes. Some days I wonder if I'm honoring his vision or destroying it. He wanted a traditional bookstore. I turned it into something different. You transformed it. There's a difference between destroying and evolving. My mother doesn't see it that way. What does she see? Olive poured coffee into mismatched mugs. Failure, stubbornness, her daughter throwing away security for a dying dream. She said that? Not in those exact words, but the meaning is clear. She handed him a mug, gestured to the couch. She wanted me to sell when Dad died, use the money for something practical. She still can't understand why I'd choose struggle over stability. Dalton settled onto the worn cushions, and Olive sat beside him. Not too close, but close enough to feel his warmth. The single lamp cast soft shadows, creating intimacy she wasn't sure she wanted, but couldn't resist. My mother would have understood, he said quietly. She worked herself to exhaustion for me, but she always said money without purpose is just paper. Purpose without passion is just existence. You have both. Did she see your success before she died? Some of it, not all. She died 6 months before the company really took off, before the acquisition that changed everything. His jaw tightened. I was in Tokyo closing a deal when she had her stroke. By the time I got home, she was gone. Never got to say goodbye, never got to tell her. He stopped, shook his head. Sorry, that's heavier than you probably wanted. Don't apologize. Olive's hand found his without conscious thought. I understand. I was with my dad at the end, holding his hand, and I still feel like I didn't say enough, didn't thank him enough, didn't tell him how much he mattered. Their fingers intertwined naturally, and neither pulled away. Olive stared at their joined hands, her brown skin against his lighter tone, the rightness of the fit. Is that why you couldn't let the bookstore go? Dalton's thumb traced circles on her palm. Because letting go felt like losing him again? Partly, but also because he believed in something. He believed books could change lives, that stories mattered, that giving people space to think and dream and become was worth more than profit margins. She met his eyes. I couldn't let that die, even if it meant losing everything else. You didn't lose everything. You chose yourself. That takes more strength than most people have. The way he looked at her, like she was brave instead of foolish, courageous instead of stubborn, made something crack open in her chest. When had anyone seen her this way? When had anyone looked past the surface to understand the why beneath her choices? Why do you do that? She whispered. Do what? Make me feel like my choices matter, like I matter. Because you do. He shifted closer, and she could count his eyelashes, see flecks of amber in his dark eyes. You walked away from security to honor authenticity. You chose purpose over prestige. You're raising the next generation of poets in a neighborhood most people have. Written off. How could you not matter? The air between them thickened. His hand still held hers. They were sitting too close, the couch too small, the moment too weighted with possibility. She should pull away, should create distance, should remember every reason this was dangerous. Instead, she heard herself say, I haven't done this in a while. Done what? Let someone in. Let someone see me. It's terrifying. I know. I haven't either. His free hand rose slowly, giving her time to pull back, to stop this. When she didn't move, his fingers traced her jawline with devastating gentleness. "Tell me to leave, Olive." "I can't." "Tell me you don't feel this." "I can't do that either." He leaned in slowly, achingly slowly, until his forehead rested against hers. They breathed the same air, suspended in the moment before everything changed. "This is a terrible idea," she whispered, "probably the worst. We barely know each other." "I know enough." Then he was kissing her, and thought dissolved into sensation. His mouth was gentle at first, questioning, learning the shape of her. She kissed him back, and the gentleness gave way to urgency. Months of tension she hadn't even known existed, ignited between them. His hand slid into her hair. She pulled him closer, needing more contact, more connection, more everything. The kiss deepened, became hungry. She'd forgotten this, the weight of wanting, the power of being wanted back, the exquisite terror of surrender. They broke apart, gasping. His pupils were blown wide, his breathing ragged. "Olive," her phone rang, shattering the moment, her mother's ringtone. She fumbled for her phone, saw the time, after 9. Her mother never called this late unless something was wrong. "Mom?" "Olive, thank God. There's a pipe burst in the basement, water everywhere. I don't know what to do." Reality crashed back. "I'm coming. Give me 20 minutes. She hung up, stood, immediately missing Dalton's warmth. "I have to go. My mom needs help with—" "I heard. Do you need me to—" "No, thank you, but no. This is family stuff." They stood in awkward silence, the spell broken, the moment lost. Olive grabbed her keys, hyper-aware of her swollen lips, her racing heart, the fact that they'd just crossed a line she couldn't uncross. At the door, Dalton caught her hand. "This wasn't a mistake." "Wasn't it?" "No." His voice was firm, certain. This was inevitable. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was wrong, wanted to protect herself from the chaos he represented, but she couldn't deny the truth humming between them. "I should go." "I know." He squeezed her hand once, then released her. "Text me when you get there, so I know you're safe." The casual concern undid her. "Okay." She fled before she could do something stupid like kiss him again. The drive to her mother's house passed in a blur. Olive's lips still tingled, her body still hummed with want. What had she done? What was she doing? This was Dalton Pierce, billionaire, CEO, completely out of her league in every measurable way. But when she'd kissed him, none of that had mattered. When he'd looked at her like she was extraordinary, league tables had ceased to exist. Her phone buzzed at a red light. "I can't stop thinking about tonight, about you, about everything we didn't finish." "Sleep well, Olive." She stared at the message, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Should she respond? Should she acknowledge what happened? Should she pretend it didn't mean what it clearly meant? "It wasn't a mistake," she typed finally. "Good night, Dalton." His response came immediately. "Good, because I'm not going anywhere." The words should have terrified her. Instead, they felt like a promise she desperately wanted him to keep. The next 2 weeks blurred together in a haze of stolen moments and escalating tension. Coffee became a daily ritual, sometimes at Limitless, sometimes at Pages and Purpose, always stretching longer than planned. They talked about everything and nothing, learning each other's histories and habits and hidden wounds. Dalton told her about building his company from nothing, the terror of early failures, the isolation that came with success. She told him about choosing the bookstore over Peter, the weight of her mother's disappointment, her fear that she wasn't enough to save her father's dream. They didn't kiss again, but the wanting never dissipated. It hung between them like humidity, making every conversation feel charged, every accidental touch feel deliberate. Jordan watched it all with knowing eyes. "You're falling for him." "I'm not. Don't even try that with me. You're falling and it terrifies you, and you're going to run before you let yourself land." "I'm not running." "Not yet, but you will. Because that's what you do when things get real." Olive wanted to argue but couldn't. Jordan knew her too well. 2 weeks after the kiss, Olive attended a planning meeting for the literacy initiative at Pierce Technologies. She'd avoided Dalton's office until now, making excuses about scheduling. But the meeting was mandatory, all grant recipients gathering to coordinate programming. She arrived early, overwhelmed by the sleek modernity of Pierce Technologies, glass and steel and innovation everywhere. This was Dalton's world, powerful, expensive, impossibly far from hers. The conference room was all windows overlooking the city. Grant recipients trickled in, everyone impressed by the space and the coffee station that looked like it belonged in a boutique cafe. Dalton arrived last with Julian West, his CFO. He wore a suit today, perfectly tailored, devastatingly handsome, every inch the billionaire CEO. When his eyes found hers across the room, something flickered in his expression. Recognition, heat, promise. The meeting started professionally enough. Julian presented metrics, timelines, coordination strategies. But when discussion turned to community-centered approaches versus corporate efficiency models, Olive couldn't stay silent. With respect, these metrics don't capture actual impact. You're measuring outputs, books distributed, workshops held, not outcomes. Are kids actually learning? Are families more engaged? Is the community stronger? Julian smiled thinly. Outcomes are harder to quantify, Miss Smith. Harder doesn't mean impossible, and if we're only measuring what's easy, we're missing what matters. What would you suggest? Qualitative data, stories, interviews with families, tracking long-term engagement, not just single event attendance. She was gesturing now, passionate. Numbers tell you what happened. People tell you why it matters. That's not scalable, Julian countered. Maybe scaling isn't the goal. Maybe depth is. In business, this isn't business, it's lives. The room had gone silent. Olive suddenly realized she was standing, leaning across the conference table, matching Julian's intensity. She glanced at Dalton and found him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read, something between amusement and admiration. Miss Smith raises good points, Dalton said quietly. Julian, let's revise our assessment metrics to include qualitative measures. Olive, would you be willing to help design that framework? Of course. Excellent. Let's take a break. The room emptied quickly. Olive gathered her notes, acutely aware that Dalton hadn't left. When she finally looked up, he was leaning against the closed door, arms crossed, smiling. What? You're magnificent when you're passionate. Heat crept up her neck. I wasn't trying to undermine your CFO. You weren't undermining, you were right. Julian thinks in spreadsheets. You think in people. We need both. He crossed to her, stopping close enough that she had to tilt her head to meet his eyes. I've missed you. I saw you yesterday. For coffee. With Jordan chaperoning. I miss being alone with you. Dalton. I know. We're keeping things professional. But I can't stop thinking about that kiss. About how you felt in my arms. About everything we didn't finish. His proximity made thinking difficult. Made breathing difficult. Made everything except wanting him difficult. We're in your office. We're in a conference room, and everyone's on break. That's not the point. What is the point, Olive? The point is, this is complicated. You're you, I'm me, and mixing personal and professional is a disaster waiting to happen. Or it's the best thing that's ever happened to either of us. His hand rose, cupped her face. I'm falling for you. I think I have been since you challenged me at the gala. Tell me I'm alone in this. She couldn't. Because she was falling too, falling in ways that terrified her, falling faster than she could catch herself, falling towards someone who could shatter her completely. You're not alone, she whispered. His smile was radiant. Good. Because I was starting to think I'd imagined. The door opened. They sprang apart like guilty teenagers. Julian stood in the doorway, eyebrows raised. Sorry to interrupt. Dalton, the senator's online too. Tell him I'll call back. He says it's urgent. Dalton's jaw tightened with frustration. Give me 5 minutes. Julian left, closing the door with more force than necessary. I should go, Olive said. Stay, please. Let me handle this call and then we can... Dalton, you have work. I have work. This, she gestured between them, is a distraction neither of us can afford right now. You're not a distraction. You're the most important thing in my life. The words stole her breath. You don't mean that. I do, and it terrifies me as much as it obviously terrifies you, but I'm not running from it. His phone buzzed insistently. She could see him warring with himself, duty versus desire, responsibility versus want. Take your call, she said gently. We'll figure this out. Promise me we'll talk, really talk, soon. I promise. She left before he could argue, before she could change her mind, before she could give in to the wanting that made everything else fade. In the elevator, she pressed her hands to her heated cheeks. This was getting out of control. She was getting out of control. Every interaction pulled her deeper into something she didn't know how to navigate. Her phone buzzed. I meant what I said. You're not a distraction. You're everything. We'll figure this out together. Dinner this week? Somewhere we can actually talk without interruptions? She should say no. Should create distance. Should protect herself before it was too late. Wednesday, 7 o'clock. I'll pick you up. And Olive, thank you for not running. Yet. The yet made her smile despite herself. He knew her too well already. Wednesday couldn't come fast enough and arrived too quickly. Olive changed outfits 6 times before settling on a simple dress that made her feel confident without trying too hard. Jordan helped with makeup, offering commentary the entire time. You're falling hard for this man. I know. That doesn't scare you? It terrifies me. But running from it scares me more. Good. Because he looks at you like you're his entire world. Don't sabotage something good because you're afraid it might end. What if I lose myself again? What if I become the woman who orbits someone else's life instead of living my own? Then I'll kick your ass back to reality. But Olive? He's not Peter. He celebrates your choices. He doesn't ask you to choose between him and the things you love. That's the difference. Dalton arrived exactly at 7, looking unfairly handsome in dark slacks and a button-down. He brought flowers, gorgeous wildflowers, not the formal roses that would have felt wrong. These are beautiful. They reminded me of you, not conventional, but remarkable. Jordan made exaggerated swooning motions behind him. Olive shot her a glare that promised retribution later. Dalton took her to a small Italian restaurant in Little Italy. Intimate, unpretentious, the kind of place where the owner knew everyone's names. He'd reserved a corner table, and they settled in with wine and bread and the comfortable silence of people who'd moved past small talk. Tell me something I don't know about you, he said. Like what? Anything. Your favorite book that you've never told anyone about. What you wanted to be as a kid. Your secret dream that feels too big to say out loud. She considered him over her wine glass. I wanted to be a writer. Novels, stories, the whole thing. But I was too scared to try. Too afraid of failing at something I actually cared about. So I told myself the bookstore was enough. Is it? Most days. Some days I wonder what might have been if I'd been braver. It's not too late. You could still write. I'm 31 and running a struggling bookstore. When would I find time? When you decide it matters enough. He reached across the table, laced his fingers through hers. You're so brave about everything else. Why not this? Because if I try and fail, I have to admit I wasn't good enough. If I don't try, I can keep the dream intact. Or you try and succeed and discover you were always good enough, just scared. His words hit like arrows, painfully accurate. What about you? What's your secret dream? A family. Kids, messy mornings, someone to come home to. He smiled ruefully. Corporate raiders don't usually admit they want domestic chaos, but I do. I want to be the father I never had. Give my kids everything my mother couldn't give me, not just money, but presence, time, attention, love without conditions. That's beautiful. It's also terrifying, because I watched my mother sacrifice everything and still come up short. I built an empire, but I don't know if I can build the thing that actually matters. You can. You just need to let yourself try. Same advice I just gave you. Guess we're both scared of the same thing, wanting something so much that failing at it would break us. Their food arrived, but neither moved to eat. The conversation had gone deep fast, the way it always did with them, past pretense, straight to the truth they didn't share with anyone else. Olive, Dalton said quietly, I need you to know something. I'm falling in love with you, not falling. I've already fallen. I love you. The way you fight for your kids, the passion you bring to everything, the courage it took to choose yourself. I love that you challenge me and see me and make me want to be better. I know it's fast, I know it's terrifying, but I need you to know. The words hung between them, impossible, perfect, devastating. Dalton, you don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know where I stand. So you're not guessing or wondering or assuming this is casual. It's not casual for me. You're not casual for me. Olive's eyes burned with unshed tears. No one had ever loved her like this. Completely. Without conditions, celebrating rather than changing her. "I'm falling too," she whispered, "and it terrifies me, because every time I've let someone in, I've lost pieces of myself. Peter wanted me to be someone else. My mother wants me to want different things, but you—" Her voice cracked. "You make me feel like being myself is enough." "It's more than enough. It's everything." He stood, rounded the table, pulled her up into his arms. The kiss was different this time. Not urgent, but reverent, a promise instead of a question. She melted into him, letting herself feel everything she'd been fighting. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. "Come home with me," he said. "Not just to be together. I want to talk to you all night. I want to fall asleep with you in my arms. I want to wake up and have you be the first thing I see." She should say no, should slow this down, should protect herself from the intensity threatening to consume them both. "Yes," she said instead, because sometimes the scariest thing and the right thing were exactly the same. Chapter 3. His penthouse overlooked the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture that somehow felt warm rather than cold, books scattered on every surface. It was exactly what she'd expected, and nothing like it at once. Expensive, yes, but also lived in, comfortable, unmistakably his. "Wine? Coffee? I have tea if you prefer." "Dalton," she caught his hand. "Stop being nervous. I want this to be perfect. It already is." He pulled her close, and they stood wrapped together, looking out at Chicago's glittering skyline. The city spread below them like fallen stars, beautiful and vast and theirs. "Tell me about her," Olive said quietly. "Your mother. What was she like?" He was silent so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Fierce. She worked herself to exhaustion but never complained, made sure I had books even when we couldn't afford food, taught me that dignity wasn't about money. It was about how you treated people, how you honored your word, how you kept going when everything said to quit." His voice roughened. "She died believing in me. I just wish she'd lived long enough to see that her faith wasn't misplaced." She knew. Mothers always know. "I hope so." He turned her in his arms, tucking her hair behind her ear. "What about your dad? What would he think of all this?" "He'd like you. He always said the measure of a person wasn't what they had, but what they gave. You give your time, your attention, your genuine care. That's what he valued." She smiled. "Though he'd also give you a hard time about being too rich. He was suspicious of wealth on principle. Smart man." They migrated to the couch, Olive tucked against Dalton's side, both unwilling to break contact. They talked for hours, about childhood dreams and adult realities, about the people who shaped them and the losses that defined them, about hope and fear and everything in between. Somewhere past midnight, Olive yawned despite herself. "I should let you sleep," Dalton said, though he made no move to release her. "I don't want to leave." "Then don't." He stood, pulled her up with him. "Stay. My guest room has everything you need," or, he hesitated, "or you can stay with me, just to sleep. I meant what I said. I want you in my arms." She should choose the guest room, should maintain boundaries, should slow this train that was rapidly leaving the station. "Your room," she said. His bedroom was masculine and uncluttered. Dark wood, crisp linens, more windows overlooking the city. He lent her a t-shirt that swallowed her, and they climbed into bed together with a strange mix of intimacy and innocence. He pulled her back against his chest, arms secure around her waist. They fit together like puzzle pieces, her curves nestling into his angles, their breathing synchronizing in the darkness. "This is dangerous," she whispered. "I know. I could get used to this, to you, to us. I'm counting on it." He pressed a kiss to her shoulder. "Sleep, Olive. I've got you." For the first time in years, she felt completely safe. She let herself drift, surrounded by his warmth, his scent, the steady rhythm of his heartbeat against her back. She woke to sunlight and the smell of coffee. Dalton stood by the window, already dressed for work, 2 mugs in hand. "Morning," he said softly. "I didn't want to wake you, but I have an early meeting." She sat up, accepting the coffee, hyper-aware of how his t-shirt barely covered her thighs. "What time is it?" 6:30. You can stay as long as you want. There's food, the shower's yours, and I can send a car whenever you're ready." "I should probably get going too. Pages and Purpose opens at 9. They stared at each other, neither wanting to break the spell of the night before. Last night was, Dalton started. Perfect, Olive finished. I was going to say life-changing, but perfect works, too. He set down his mug, crossed to the bed, cupped her face in his hands. I love you, Olive Smith, and I'm going to keep saying it until you believe me. I believe you. She turned her face into his palm. I love you, too. I'm terrified to love you, but I do. His kiss was gentle, unhurried, full of promise. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright. Dinner again this week? And next week? And every week until forever sounds reasonable. She laughed. That's a lot of dinners. I'm a lot in love. After he left, Olive showered and dressed, feeling transformed. The woman in the mirror looked different, softer, more open, dangerously hopeful. She'd let Dalton in, really in, and the world hadn't ended. Maybe Jordan was right. Maybe this was different. Maybe she could have love without losing herself. Her phone showed a text from him. Already missing you. Thank you for last night, for trusting me, for being you. She smiled, typing back. Thank you for seeing me, for all of it. The next 2 weeks were a blur of happiness. They fell into an easy rhythm. Coffee most mornings, dinners several nights a week, stolen hours whenever their schedules aligned. Dalton visited the poetry workshop regularly, becoming a favorite with her students. She attended one of his company events, watching him command a room with the same quiet intensity he brought to everything. They kissed often, in her office after workshops, in his penthouse overlooking the city, in the small moments between their separate lives. But they hadn't gone further. Some unspoken agreement kept them from crossing that final line, as if they both knew that once they did, there would be no going back. One evening, after a particularly long day, Olive was closing the bookstore when rain began. Sudden Chicago downpour, the kind that turns streets to rivers in minutes. She'd sent Jordan home early, and now she was alone in Pages and Purpose, listening to rain hammer the windows. The door chimed. Dalton stood dripping in the entrance, hair plastered to his forehead, suit jacket dark with water. You're going to flood my floor, she said, but she was already moving toward him. I was 3 blocks away when it started. Figured I'd wait it out here rather than in my car. Convenient, isn't it? His smile was wicked. She tossed him a towel from the restroom, watching as he dried his face and hair. Even soaked, he was devastating. I should make you coffee, warm you up. Or we could wait out the storm together. He caught her hand, pulled her close. I've been thinking about you all day. Just thinking? Obsessing, actually. Missing you, wanting you, the usual. The air between them shifted, became charged. They'd been dancing around this for weeks. The wanting, the need, the inevitable conclusion to the tension building between them. Dalton, I know, we're taking things slow. But Olive, I'm going insane. Every time I'm near you, I want... He stopped, shook his head. I want everything with you. I want that too, but I'm scared. Of what? Of wanting you so much that I lose myself, of needing you more than I should, of this being so good that when it ends, I won't survive it. What if it doesn't end? What if this is just the beginning? She looked up at him, this man who'd somehow become essential, who saw her completely and loved what he found, who made her brave enough to want things she'd sworn off. Kiss me, she whispered. He didn't need to be asked twice. His mouth claimed hers with an urgency that stole her breath. She kissed him back with equal hunger, months of restraint shattering between them. His hand slid into her hair, angling her face for deeper access. She pulled him closer, needing more contact, more heat, more everything. They stumbled backward, still kissing, until Olive's back hit the bookshelf. Books tumbled around them, neither noticed. Dalton's mouth moved to her neck, finding sensitive spots that made her gasp. Her fingers fumbled with his, wet shirt buttons, needing to feel his skin. Olive, he breathed against her throat, tell me to stop. Don't stop, please don't stop. They migrated to her office, leaving a trail of wet clothes. On the vintage couch where they'd first kissed, they came together with desperate tenderness, learning each other's responses, finding rhythms that fit, discovering the language only bodies could speak. He touched her like she was precious. She responded like she'd been waiting for him her entire life. Their connection was passionate but not complete, both sensing they needed to save something, to not rush the moment they'd been building toward. Afterward, they lay tangled together on the narrow couch, breathing hard, hearts racing in sync. That was, Olive started. Not enough, Dalton finished. I want all of you, Olive, not just pieces, everything. I want that too, but I'm still scared. Then be scared with me. Be scared and choose me anyway. She turned in his arms, studying his face. This man who'd become her entire world, without her, quite realizing when it happened. Okay. Okay? Okay, I choose you. I choose us. I choose being terrified and doing it anyway. His smile was radiant. Then his phone buzzed insistently. He groaned, checked it, and his expression shifted. I have to go. Emergency board meeting. A deal's falling apart and they need me there in an hour. Disappointment crashed through her, but she understood. This was his life. High-stakes decisions, constant demands, the price of the success he'd built. Go, handle your emergency. I don't want to leave you. I know, but you have to. She kissed him softly. We'll figure out the rest. We have time. He dressed quickly, pressing fierce kisses to her forehead, her cheeks, her mouth. I love you. This isn't over. We're just getting started. After he left, Olive lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, body still humming from his touch. They'd crossed a line tonight, not the final one, but close enough that the eventual crossing felt inevitable. She fell asleep there, wrapped in the blanket that still smelled like him, rain drumming a steady rhythm against the windows. The next week passed in a blur of mounting tension. They saw each other often, but every interaction was charged with unfinished business, stolen kisses in doorways, lingering touches that promised more, heated looks across crowded rooms. Olive was closing up Thursday evening when her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Is this Olive Smith? A woman's voice, polished, cold. Yes, who's this? My name is Lena. I'm Dalton Pierce's ex-fiancée. We need to talk. Olive's stomach dropped. I don't think... He hasn't told you about me, has he? About why we broke up? About what kind of man he really is? I'm not interested in... He'll hurt you, Olive. Not because he's cruel, but because he can't help it. His company will always come first. Always. I learned that the hard way. You will too. Dalton's he proposed to me after 3 months. Made all the same promises he's probably making you. But when it came down to choosing between me and a board meeting, he chose the meeting. Every single time. 3 years together, and I was always second place. Eventually, I left. Found someone who actually had time for a relationship. Olive's hands shook. Why are you telling me this? Because I saw the society page, you two at that literacy event, and I recognized the look on his face, the same one he had with me at the beginning, before reality set in. Lena's voice softened slightly. I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm trying to save you from the heartbreak I went through. Men like Dalton don't change. They just find new women to disappoint. She hung up. Olive stood frozen, phone clutched in her hand, Lena's words echoing. Was she right? Was Dalton incapable of prioritizing a relationship? He'd already left her mid-moment for a board meeting. What happened when things got harder? When she needed him and he was in Tokyo or Singapore or wherever his empire demanded? Her phone buzzed. Dalton. Dinner tomorrow? I've barely seen you this week. Miss you. She stared at the message, uncertainty gnawing at her chest, then typed, can't tomorrow. Rain check? His response came immediately. Everything okay? Fine, just busy. Olive. What's wrong? Nothing. Talk later. She turned off her phone before he could press further. Jordan found her the next morning, staring blankly at inventory sheets. Okay, what happened? You look terrible. Olive told her about Lena's call. Jordan listened, expression darkening. And you're listening to his bitter ex-fiancée. Why exactly? Because maybe she's right. Maybe I'm being naive thinking this can work. He's a billionaire CEO, Jordan. His life is board meetings and international deals. What happens when I need him and he's on another continent? Have you asked him? Asked him what? What he wants? What he's willing to prioritize? Or are you just assuming the worst and preparing to run? The accuracy of the accusation stung. I'm not running. Not yet, but you're already building the exit. Don't sabotage something good because you're scared it might end badly. Talk to him, Olive. Give him a chance to prove Lena wrong. But Olive couldn't shake the fear. She spent the next 2 days avoiding Dalton's calls, responding to texts with increasing brevity, building walls as fast as she could construct them. Saturday morning, he appeared at Pages and Purpose, looking haggard. "Why are you avoiding me?" "I'm not. Don't lie to me. You've barely spoken to me in 3 days. What happened?" The worry in his eyes almost broke her, but fear won out. Maybe this is moving too fast. Maybe we need space to think. Space? He said it like a curse. What we need is honesty. What's really going on? "Your ex-fiancée called me, Lena. She had some interesting things to say about your priorities." Understanding flooded his face, followed by anger. "And you believed her?" "She said you always chose work over her, that you can't help it, that you'll do the same to me." "I'm not the same person I was with Lena. I was building the company, obsessed with proving myself, terrified of failing. I've learned since then. I've changed. Have you? Because you left me mid-conversation last week for a board meeting. What happens when it's not a board meeting but our anniversary? Our hypothetical kids' recital? The moments that matter? I would never. You don't know that, and neither do I." She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to hold together against the pressure of fear. Maybe Lena's right. Maybe men like you don't change. Maybe I'm setting myself up for the exact heartbreak Peter gave me, choosing someone who'll eventually ask me to be smaller, want less, accept being second place. That's not fair. I've never asked you to be anything but yourself. Not yet. But what about when your life and mine collide? When you have to choose between me and your empire? What then, Dalton? He stared at her, jaw tight, hands clenched at his sides. "I can't believe you're doing this. I can't believe you're letting Lena's bitterness poison what we have. Or maybe I'm being realistic for the first time. Realistic or terrified, because from where I'm standing, you're running, just like you said you were afraid of doing, just like Jordan probably warned you about." The accuracy of the hit landed hard. Maybe I am running. Maybe that's smarter than waiting around to get hurt. Or maybe it's guaranteeing the exact pain you're trying to avoid. His voice broke. "I love you, Olive. I've been falling in love with you since the moment you challenged me at that gala. I want a life with you, messy, complicated, real. But I can't fight your fear and Lena's ghost and your determination to sabotage this. I need you to choose me. Choose us. Choose to believe I'm not Peter or every other person who's disappointed you." "I can't." The words hung between them like a death sentence. Dalton's face went carefully blank. "Then I guess we're done here." "Dalton? No, you're right. This was a mistake. I apologize for pushing too hard, too fast. Consider this a clean break." He turned toward the door. "Wait." He paused, shoulders rigid. "What?" She wanted to tell him she was sorry, she was wrong. She was terrified of losing him, so she pushed him away first. But the words stuck in her throat, trapped behind walls of fear. "Nothing," she whispered. "Never mind." He left without looking back. Olive collapsed behind the counter, tears streaming down her face. She'd done it, pushed away the best thing in her life because she was too scared to believe it could last. Jordan appeared an hour later, took one look at her and sighed. "You broke up with him." "He broke up with me. Only after you basically forced him to. Damn it, Olive. I did the right thing. Better now than later when it would hurt even more. Or you did the scared thing. There's a difference." Jordan crouched beside her. "Honey, I love you, but you're an idiot. That man loves you completely, and you threw it away because you'd rather be alone than risk being hurt. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You're so busy protecting yourself from potential pain that you're guaranteeing actual pain. That's not brave. That's just sad." Jordan's words haunted her for days. Olive threw herself into work, trying to outrun the ache. But everything reminded her of Dalton. The poetry workshop he'd attended, the coffee shop where they'd talked for hours, the couch in her office where they'd first kissed. Her students noticed. "Miss Olive, where's Mr. Pierce?" Keisha asked after the 3rd week without him. "He's busy." "Did you guys break up? Marcus said you were dating." "It's complicated." "That's adult for yes, we broke up and I'm sad about it," Keisha said wisely. "My mom says sometimes we push away the good ones because we don't think we deserve them." Out of the mouths of 16-year-olds. Have you ever pushed away someone you loved because you were terrified of losing yourself? Or kept a secret that felt too big to share? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what happens when Dalton learns the truth. 6 weeks passed. Olive moved through her days like a ghost, functioning but not living. The bookstore thrived. The Pierce Technologies grant had given them breathing room, but she felt hollow. She was restocking shelves when nausea hit, sudden, overwhelming. She barely made it to the bathroom before getting sick. Food poisoning, she told herself, or a stomach bug. But it happened again the next morning, and the next. Jordan found her one afternoon, pale and shaking after another bout of morning sickness. How long has this been happening? A week? Maybe 2? Jordan's expression shifted from concern to understanding. Olive, when was your last period? I don't. She stopped, thought, felt blood drain from her face. Oh, God. You need to take a test. It's probably just stress. Take a test. The drugstore cashier didn't look at her twice. Olive bought 3 different brands, hands shaking so badly she could barely swipe her card. In her apartment bathroom, she took all 3 tests, then sat on the floor, watching the timer on her phone tick down. 3 minutes had never felt longer. When the alarm chimed, she forced herself to look. 2 lines, both tests, clear, unmistakable, life-changing, pregnant. She was pregnant with Dalton Pierce's baby, the man she'd pushed away 6 weeks ago, the man whose calls she'd stopped answering, the man who thought she didn't love him enough to fight for them. Olive pressed her hands to her flat stomach, tears streaming down her face. A baby. Dalton's baby. A tiny life created during that passionate night in her office when they'd come together like they were made for each other. What was she going to do? She couldn't tell him. Could she? He'd think she trapped him. Everyone would think she trapped the billionaire. Her mother would have opinions. The media would have a field day. And Dalton, God, what would Dalton think? She'd pushed him away, broken his heart, and now she was carrying his child. How could she tell him without him assuming the worst? Without everyone assuming the worst? Her phone buzzed. Rachel Pierce, Dalton's cousin, requesting coffee. Olive had met Rachel briefly at one of Dalton's company events. They'd connected immediately, exchanging numbers with vague promises to get together. Olive had been too consumed with Dalton to follow up. Now Rachel wanted coffee. On the same day, Olive discovered she was pregnant. The universe had a cruel sense of humor. They met at a small cafe near Pages and Purpose the next afternoon. Rachel was warm and direct, exactly as Olive remembered. I'll be blunt, Rachel said over lattes. Dalton's miserable. He's working himself into the ground, barely sleeping, definitely not eating enough. And I know you broke up with him, but I needed to meet the woman who could make my cousin fall that hard. Rachel, I don't think he loves you, really loves you. I've never seen him like this. Rachel studied her carefully. And I think you love him too. So what happened? Why did you walk away? Olive told her about Lena's call, her fears, the way she'd pushed Dalton away before he could hurt her. Rachel listened without interrupting, expression shifting from sympathetic to exasperated. Lena is bitter and vindictive. She left Dalton, not the other way around. And yes, he was obsessed with his company back then. But people change, Olive. Dalton has changed. You changed him. What if I didn't? What if he still... Rachel's eyes narrowed slightly, and Olive realized she'd unconsciously placed a hand on her stomach. Understanding dawned across Rachel's face. Oh, please don't. You're pregnant. Olive's silence was answer enough. Does he know? She shook her head, tears threatening. I just found out yesterday. And I don't know how to tell him. What if he thinks I did this on purpose? What if he thinks I'm after his money? What if... Stop. Rachel reached across the table, gripped her hand. Dalton grew up watching his mother struggle alone. He would never abandon his child. Never. And he's been in love with you since that first night. This baby might be a surprise, but it won't be unwanted. You don't know that. I know my cousin. I know what he wants. Family, connection, someone to build a life with. You're giving him all of that, and you're terrified he'll reject it. But Olive, he won't. The only thing that'll hurt him is if you keep this from him. I'm so scared. Of course you are. But hiding this won't make it less scary. It'll just make it worse. Rachel squeezed her hand. Tell him. Today, he deserves to know. After Rachel left, Olive sat, alone, hands cradling the secret growing inside her. Rachel was right. Dalton deserved to know, but the thought of telling him, of seeing his reaction, of potentially having her worst fears confirmed, her phone buzzed. Dalton, I know you don't want to hear from me, but I can't stop thinking about you. I miss you. If there's any chance, any at all, please talk to me. Her fingers moved before she could stop them. Can you come to the bookstore tonight? 7 o'clock? We need to talk. His response was immediate. I'll be there. Olive spent the rest of the day in a state of barely controlled panic. She was going to tell him. She was going to tell him she was pregnant and watch everything change. His face, their relationship, their entire future. By 7, she'd worked herself into a state. When the door chimed and Dalton walked in, looking hopeful and cautious and heartbreakingly beautiful, she almost broke. Hi, he said softly. Hi. They stood across the store from each other, the distance feeling like miles. You wanted to talk? The words stuck. How did you tell someone this? I need to tell you something. Before she could continue, the door chimed again. Olive looked up. Peter Townsend walked in. Of course this would be the universe's timing. Olive, Peter's smile was familiar and unwelcome. I heard you'd be here. Hoped we could catch up. Now's not a good time. I'll only take a minute. Peter's eyes slid to Dalton, recognition dawning. Dalton Pierce, we've met, briefly. His tone added layers of meaning. Dalton's expression had gone carefully neutral. Townsend, the testosterone level in the room spiked dramatically. Olive, can we talk? Peter asked. Privately? No, whatever you need to say it now. I've been thinking about us, about the mistakes I made. I was wrong to give you that ultimatum, wrong to leave. I want another chance. The timing couldn't have been worse. Olive stood there, pregnant with another man's baby, while her ex-fiancé asked for reconciliation, and the father of her child watched with unreadable eyes. Peter, I know I hurt you, Peter continued, but I've changed. I see now that the bookstore matters, that your dreams matter. I was selfish before. I won't be again. Dalton's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Just watched, waiting. Peter, Olive said firmly, I appreciate the apology, but we're done. We've been done for 3 years. I've moved on. To him? Peter gestured at Dalton. Come on, Olive, the billionaire? That's not real. That's a fantasy. What happens when he gets bored? Leave, Dalton said quietly, dangerously. Now. Or what? You'll sue me? Buy my company? That's what guys like you do, right? I'll ask nicely one more time. Leave the lady alone and get out. Peter's face flushed with anger. You think you deserve her? You don't even know her? I loved her for years. You left her, Dalton cut in, voice like steel. You gave her an ultimatum and walked away when she chose herself. Don't pretend that was love. That was ownership. And you don't get to come back now and act like you're the wronged party. And you're better? From what I hear, you're exactly like me. All work. No time for actual relationship. Enough! Olive's voice rang out. Both men turned to her. Peter, leave, now. We're done. We've been done. And whatever I do or don't have with Dalton is none of your business. Peter stared at her, clearly ready to argue. Then his eyes dropped to where her hand had unconsciously moved to her stomach, a protective gesture she hadn't meant to make. His expression shifted. Oh my God, you're pregnant. The words hung in the suddenly silent room. Dalton went completely still. His eyes found hers, and she watched as understanding crashed through him. Shock, confusion, calculation. Is it his? Peter asked unnecessarily. Get out, Olive said, but her voice was shaking. Please, just go. Peter left, muttering under his breath. The door chimed behind him with terrible finality. Olive and Dalton faced each other across the empty bookstore. You're pregnant, he said. Not a question, a statement. Yes, she whispered. How long have you known? I found out yesterday. And you were going to tell me tonight? His voice was carefully controlled, but she could hear the emotion beneath. Hurt, anger, something that might have been hope. Yes. I swear, Dalton, I just found out. I was going to tell you before Peter showed up and ruined everything. He stood frozen, processing. She watched emotions flicker across his face, shock giving way to something else, something she couldn't quite identify. "Say something," she pleaded. "Please." "It's mine." "Of course it's yours. There hasn't been anyone else since—" She stopped. "That night in my office when we—" "I remember." His voice was rough. "I remember everything." Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words and uncertain futures. "I know what you're thinking," Olive said, tears starting to fall. "That I did this on purpose, that I'm after your money, that I'm trying to trap the billionaire. But I swear, Dalton, I didn't—" "Stop!" He closed the distance between them in 3 long strides. "Stop right there." She braced herself for anger, for accusations, for rejection. Instead, his hands framed her face, thumbs wiping away her tears. "You really think I'd believe you did this intentionally? You, who've been terrified of needing anyone, who pushed me away because you were scared of losing yourself? You think I'd accuse you of trapping me? Everyone will think. I don't care what everyone thinks. I only care about you, about this." His hand moved to cover hers on her stomach. "About us?" Hope fluttered dangerously in her chest. "You're not angry?" "I'm hurt that you didn't tell me sooner. I only found out yesterday. Not about the pregnancy, about everything. You pushed me away 6 weeks ago, Olive. 6 weeks of thinking you didn't want me, didn't trust me, didn't love me enough to fight for us. And now I find out you're carrying my baby, and I've missed weeks of—" His voice broke. "I should have been there, from the beginning. You shouldn't have gone through this alone. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I was scared and stupid and human and terrified. I get it." He pulled her close, tucking her head under his chin. "But we're done with that now. No more running. No more pushing each other away. We figure this out together." She clung to him, breathing in his familiar scent, letting herself believe this might actually be okay. What if I'm terrible at this? What if I can't do the whole relationship thing while pregnant, and then we'll figure it out. Together. That's what people who love each other do. You still love me? After everything? He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. Olive, I never stopped. Not for a single second. You broke my heart, but you didn't stop being the person I love, the person I want to build a life with, the person I want to raise this baby with. I love you too. I never stopped either. I got scared. I know, but you're not allowed to run anymore. Deal? Deal. He kissed her then, gentle, reverent, full of promise. When they broke apart, he kept his forehead pressed to hers. We're having a baby, he said, wonder coloring his voice. We're having a baby, she confirmed. I'm going to be a father. You're going to be an amazing father. His eyes were bright with unshed tears. My mother, God, I wish she could have known. She always wanted grandchildren. She knows. Somehow I think she knows. They stood wrapped together for a long moment, the reality slowly settling in. A baby. Their baby. Created from passion and love and one perfect night when their walls had finally crumbled. We need to talk about practicalities, Dalton said finally. Doctor's appointments, prenatal care, vitamins. Have you seen anyone yet? I have an appointment scheduled for next week. I was going to... She stopped, realizing what she'd almost said. You were going to go alone. I didn't think I had a choice. You always have a choice, and the choice is, I'm coming with you. To every appointment, every ultrasound, every moment. You're not doing this alone. Relief flooded through her. Okay. He hesitated. There's something I need to ask you. What? Move in with me. She blinked. What? Move in with me, into the penthouse. I want to take care of you. Be there for morning sickness, make sure you're eating enough. Dalton, I know it's fast. I know we just got back together. But we're having a baby, Olive. I want us to do this together, as a family, and I want you where I can see you, hold you, make sure you're okay. That's very sweet and slightly controlling. I prefer protective. His smile was sheepish. Too much? She considered. Part of her wanted to maintain independence to prove she could handle this alone. But another part, the part that was tired of always being strong, always being alone, wanted nothing more than to fall into his arms and let him take care of things. What about the bookstore? I can't abandon Pages and Purpose. I'd never ask you to. Keep running it. Keep doing the workshops. I'll support whatever you need. I just want you to come home to me at night. To us. This is crazy. Probably. But everything about us has been crazy from the start. He cupped her face. Move in with me. Please, let me take care of you both. Okay, she heard herself say. Yes, I'll move in with you. His smile was radiant. Then his expression shifted, became serious. There's one more thing. What? He stepped back, and for a terrifying moment she thought he was leaving. Instead, he pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. Her breath caught. I've been carrying this for 6 weeks, he said quietly. Ever since you pushed me away. I couldn't bring myself to return it. Kept hoping I'd get a chance to use it. He opened the box, revealing a simple, elegant ring. This isn't because of the baby. This is because I love you. Because you're the person I want to wake up next to every morning. Because you challenge me and see me and make me want to be the man worthy of you. He dropped to one knee right there in the middle of Pages and Purpose, surrounded by books and memories and everything that had brought them together. Olive Smith, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving Lena wrong, proving Peter wrong, proving that I can be the partner you deserve, the father our child deserves, the man who chooses you every single time? Tears streamed down her face. Yes. God, yes. He slipped the ring on her finger, then stood and pulled her into his arms. The kiss was deep and thorough and full of promises they'd both keep this time. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Olive laughed through her tears. This is insane. We broke up 6 weeks ago. I'm pregnant. We're getting married. This is... Perfect, Dalton finished. This is perfect. Messy and complicated and absolutely perfect. My mother's going to lose her mind. So is Rachel and Julian and pretty much everyone we know. He grinned. Should we tell them together or separately? Together. Definitely together. Safety in numbers. They spent the rest of the evening making plans, doctor's appointments, moving logistics, how to tell their families. It felt surreal and wonderful and terrifying all at once. Around midnight, Olive yawned despite herself. Dalton immediately went into protective mode. You should be sleeping. The baby needs rest. The baby is the size of a blueberry. I think it's fine. Humor me. I'm new at this whole impending fatherhood thing. She let him drive her to his penthouse, let him fuss over her, let herself be cared for in ways she'd always resisted before. It felt good. Scary, but good. In his bed. Their bed now. She curled against his chest, his hand protective over her stomach. I'm still scared, she admitted in the darkness. Me too. But we're scared together now. That's the difference. She fell asleep feeling safer than she had in weeks, surrounded by his warmth and the promise of their impossible, perfect future. Chapter 4. The next week was a whirlwind. They told Rachel first, who cried with joy and immediately started planning a baby shower. Jordan reacted with, I knew it, and a bone-crushing hug. Julian was professionally congratulatory and privately amused. Telling Denise was harder. Olive's mother sat in silence after the news, processing. Finally, you're pregnant and engaged to a man you've known for 3 months. I know it's fast, Mom. Fast doesn't begin to cover it. Denise turned to Dalton. And you? What are your intentions with my daughter? To love her, support her, and raise our child together. To marry her as soon as she'll let me. To spend the rest of my life making sure she knows she made the right choice. Denise studied him for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. Your father would have liked you. He always said the best men are the ones who let their women be fully themselves. You do that for Olive. I try. Try harder. She's stubborn and independent and brilliant. She'll need a partner who can keep up. I know. That's why I fell in love with her. After Denise left, Olive collapsed onto Dalton's couch. That went better than expected. She's protective. I respect that. She called you a good man. From my mother, that's basically a glowing endorsement. The doctor's appointment that week confirmed everything. 8 weeks pregnant, healthy heartbeat, due date in late spring. Dalton held her hand through the ultrasound, watching the screen with wonder. That's our baby, he whispered. That's our baby, Olive confirmed. They got copies of the ultrasound photos. Dalton immediately made one his phone wallpaper. Moving into the penthouse took longer than expected. Olive had accumulated more books than she realized. Dalton converted his home office into a library for her collection, complete with the reading chair from her apartment. "You didn't have to do this," she said, running her fingers along the shelves. "I want you to feel at home here. This is your space now, too." It was the little gestures that got her. The way he stocked ginger tea for her morning sickness, the pregnancy pillow that appeared on the bed, the way he'd reorganized his schedule to be home for dinner most nights. But the morning sickness was brutal. Olive spent most mornings clinging to the bathroom floor, Dalton holding her hair back and murmuring reassurances. "This is disgusting," she groaned one particularly bad morning. "You shouldn't have to see this." "This is our baby making sure you know they exist. I'll take every moment of it. Even the vomit. Even the vomit." He helped her up, got her situated on the couch, with crackers and tea. "Besides, you're growing a human. I can handle some morning sickness." The poetry workshop had to be told. Keisha noticed Olive's ring immediately. "Miss Olive, you're engaged to Mr. Pierce?" "Yes." "I knew it," Marcus high-fived Keisha. "Told you they were together." "Are you going to keep running the workshop?" one of the younger students asked nervously. "Of course. Why wouldn't I?" "Because you're marrying a billionaire. Thought you might stop working." Olive exchanged glances with Dalton, who'd come to observe again. "I'm not stopping anything. Pages and Purpose is still mine. This workshop is still happening. Getting married doesn't change what matters to me." "Good," Keisha said firmly, "because we need you." After the workshop, Dalton pulled her aside. "You're incredible with them. They're incredible on their own. I just give them space to shine. Our kid is going to be so lucky, having you as a mother." The words made her throat tight. "I hope so. I'm terrified of messing this up." "We both are. But we'll figure it out together." 2 months passed in domestic bliss mixed with morning sickness and exhaustion. They planned a small wedding for after the baby was born. Neither wanted a huge production, and Olive definitely didn't want to be visibly pregnant in wedding photos. "Why not?" Dalton asked. "You're beautiful. Pregnancy makes you glow." "Pregnancy makes me nauseous and exhausted." "Beautifully nauseous and exhausted." She threw a pillow at him, but the happiness couldn't last forever. One evening, Olive was at Pages and Purpose doing inventory when nausea hit harder than usual. She barely made it to the bathroom before getting violently sick. Jordan found her on the floor, pale and shaking. "Olive, this isn't normal morning sickness. We need to get you to the hospital." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. Call Dalton, now." Olive's hands shook as she dialed. He answered on the first ring. "Hey, beautiful. How's Dalton? Something's wrong. Jordan's taking me to the hospital." She heard his sharp intake of breath. "I'm coming." "Which hospital?" "Northwestern. But you don't have to. I'm already in my car. 20 minutes. I love you." He hung up before she could respond. The emergency room was a blur of tests and questions. Olive lay in a hospital bed, monitor tracking the baby's heartbeat, while Jordan held her hand and murmured reassurances. Dalton burst through the door, rumpled and terrified. He was at her side immediately, taking her hand, pressing kisses to her forehead. "What happened? Is the baby—" "They're running tests. The baby's heartbeat is strong, but I fell earlier. At the bookstore. I didn't think it was serious, but—" "You fell?" His face went pale. "How? Where?" "Off a ladder. I was reaching for inventory, lost my balance." "Dalton, I'm so sorry." No apologies. Accidents happen." But his hand was shaking as he stroked her hair. "The baby's okay?" "So far. They're checking for—" The doctor entered, and they both fell silent. "Good news," she said immediately. "The baby is fine. Strong heartbeat, no signs of distress. But Miss Smith, you need to be more careful. Falls during pregnancy can be dangerous. You were very lucky." Relief crashed through Olive so powerfully she started crying. Dalton held her, his own tears soaking into her hair. After the doctor left, he pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. "You scared me." "I scared myself." "No more ladders, no more heavy lifting, no more taking risks with our baby's safety." "Dalton, I mean it, Olive. I can't—" His voice broke. "I can't lose you. Either of you. I grew up without a father. I lost my mother too soon. This baby, this family we're building. It's everything. Please be careful. The raw vulnerability in his voice undid her. I will. I promise. No more ladders. They kept her overnight for observation. Dalton never left her side, sleeping in the uncomfortable chair beside her bed, hand never leaving hers. In the darkness, she whispered, I love you. I love you too. Both of you. The scare brought everything into sharp focus. Life was fragile. Happiness was precious. They'd found each other against odds, created a life together, built something worth protecting. Olive wasn't going to take it for granted again. The next few weeks, Dalton was almost comically overprotective. He hired someone to handle inventory at the bookstore. He made sure Olive had healthy meals delivered. He rearranged his schedule to work from home more often. You're hovering, she told him one afternoon. I'm being attentive. You're being obsessive. Can you blame me? He pulled her close. I almost lost you, both of you. I'm allowed to be a little obsessive. She softened, letting herself lean into his embrace. A little. But I'm okay. We're okay. I know. I need to see it. Need to be sure. At 4 months pregnant, they went for another ultrasound. The technician smiled as she moved the wand across Olive's rounded belly. Would you like to know the sex? Olive and Dalton looked at each other. They'd discussed this. Yes, they said together. Congratulations. You're having a girl. A daughter. They were having a daughter. Dalton's eyes filled with tears. A girl. We're having a girl. Are you okay with that? Olive asked, searching his face. Okay with it? Olive, I'm thrilled, terrified, but thrilled. He kissed her softly. She's going to have your strength, your passion, your brilliant mind. And your kindness, your determination, your way of seeing people. She's going to be extraordinary. That night, lying in bed with Dalton's hand on her belly, Olive felt their daughter kick for the first time. Dalton! She's moving! He pressed his hand where hers had been, wonder lighting his face. I feel her. I feel our baby girl. They stayed like that for hours, marveling at every flutter and kick, planning nurseries and names and futures. What about Elena? Dalton suggested. After my mother. Elena Smith Pierce. It's beautiful. Or we could do Olive's father's name as a middle name. Marcus? Elena Marcus Pierce? Perfect. She'll have both legacies. As Olive drifted to sleep, she thought about how far they'd come. From that first electric meeting at the gala, through fear and running and walls, to this moment, pregnant with his daughter, planning their wedding, building a life together. It wasn't the life she'd planned. It was better. The months flew by. Olive's belly grew. The wedding planning continued. The bookstore thrived. Dalton's company launched a new initiative inspired by their literacy program. At 6 months pregnant, Olive had to finally admit she couldn't do everything alone. Jordan took over more day-to-day operations at Pages and Purpose. Dalton hired additional staff. Olive focused on the poetry workshop and her own health. I hate feeling useless, she complained one evening. You're growing a human. That's literally the opposite of useless. I want to be doing more. You're doing everything that matters. He pulled her into his lap, more difficult with her belly between them, but still possible. You're taking care of yourself and our daughter. That's more important than anything else. She rested her head against his shoulder, letting herself accept the truth. She didn't have to do everything alone anymore. She had a partner, a true partner. At 7 months, they had a baby shower that Rachel organized. Olive's students came, bringing handmade gifts and poems for baby Elena. Denise cried, happy tears for once. Jordan gave a speech about how Olive was going to be an incredible mother because she already treated her poetry students like family. Dalton watched it all with shining eyes, one hand never leaving Olive's belly. This is our family, he whispered, our impossible, perfect family. At 8 months, Olive could barely move without discomfort. Her ankles were swollen, her back ached constantly. She'd stopped sleeping more than 2 hours at a time. I'm done being pregnant, she announced one morning. Get her out. 1 more month, love. That's easy for you to say. You're not the one who can't see your feet. I know, you're a warrior, the strongest person I've ever met. Flattery will get you everywhere. That's the plan. Despite the discomfort, there were beautiful moments. reading to her belly before bed, feeling Elena's kicks during poetry workshop like she was listening. Dalton talking to her daughter about what their life would be like, the love they already had for her. At 8.5 months, Olive was in bed when she felt something wet between her legs. "Dalton?" He appeared in the doorway, toothbrush in hand. "Yeah? I think my water just broke." The toothbrush clattered to the floor. "What, now? But you're not due for another 2 weeks." "Babies don't follow schedules. Call the doctor, get the hospital bag, and breathe. You look like you're going to pass out." The drive to the hospital was a blur. Contractions started almost immediately, sharp, intense, stealing her breath. Dalton held her hand, murmuring encouragements, looking terrified. "You're doing great," he said. "I haven't done anything yet except get in the car." "Still, you're amazing." Labor was long and brutal. 15 hours of contractions, breathing exercises, Dalton refusing to leave her side even when she screamed at him during the worst of it. "I hate you for doing this to me." "I know, love, I'm sorry. This is the worst thing ever. I know. Why did we think having a baby was a good idea? Because we love each other and we're idiots." That actually made her laugh despite the pain. Finally, after what felt like forever, the doctor said, "One more push, Olive. You're almost there." With Dalton's hand in hers and his voice in her ear, Olive pushed with everything she had. And then, a cry. Sharp, angry, perfect. "It's a girl," the doctor announced, though they already knew. "She's beautiful." They placed Elena Marcus Pierce on Olive's chest, tiny, red, screaming indignantly at being evicted from her comfortable home. She had Dalton's dark hair and Olive's nose and absolutely perfect fingers and toes. "Hi, baby girl," Olive whispered through tears. "We've been waiting for you." Dalton was openly crying, staring at his daughter like she was a miracle. "She's perfect. Olive, she's absolutely perfect." "She looks angry. She gets that from you." "Hey." But she was smiling. They were both smiling. This tiny human they'd created together, their impossible perfect daughter, was finally here. After the nurses cleaned Elena and did their checks, they returned her to Olive's arms. Dalton sat beside the bed, one arm around Olive, one finger clutched in Elena's tiny fist. "We did it," he said. "We did. We made a whole human. We did. I love you both so much. We love you too." They stayed like that for a long time. New family of 3, exhausted and emotional and completely content. Rachel arrived first, bearing flowers and tears. "She's gorgeous. Oh my God, she looks just like both of you." Jordan came next, bearing books for Elena's future library. "Start them young, right?" Denise came last, moving slowly to the bed, looking at her granddaughter with soft eyes. "She has your father's nose. Did you see?" "I saw, Mom. He would have loved her." Denise touched Elena's tiny hand. "You did good, baby. Both of you did real good." Over the next few days, they learned to be parents. Diaper changes and midnight feedings and the particular brand of exhaustion that came with a newborn. But they did it together, tag teaming when one was too tired, supporting each other through the inevitable moments of panic. "Is she breathing?" Dalton asked for the 100th time, hovering over the bassinet. "She's breathing. You checked 5 minutes ago." "I know, but Dalton, she's fine. We're fine. Everything is fine." He climbed back into bed, pulling Olive against his side. Elena slept peacefully in her bassinet beside them. "I can't believe she's real," he whispered. "I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and this will all be a dream. It's real. This is our life now. Best life ever. Even with the no sleep and constant worry, especially with that, because it means she's here. You're here. We're a family." Olive kissed him softly. Best life ever. 6 weeks after Elena's birth, they had a small wedding at Pages and Purpose, surrounded by books and family and everything that mattered. Elena slept in Rachel's arms during the ceremony, oblivious to the promises being made. Olive wore a simple dress. Dalton wore a suit. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves. "I promise to choose you every day," Dalton said. "To see you, celebrate you, support your dreams. I promise to be the partner you deserve and the father Elena needs. I promise that my company will never come before my family, that success means nothing without you both, that love is always the priority." Olive's voice shook as she spoke. I promise to trust you, to let you in instead of pushing you away. I promise to be brave enough to need you and strong enough to stand beside you. I promise to build our life together, not just yours or mine, but ours. I promise to choose us every day, even when it's scary. When they kissed, Elena chose that moment to wake up and cry, making everyone laugh. She's already opinionated, Jordan called out. She gets that from her mother, Dalton said. Hey. But Olive was laughing, happy, surrounded by love. The reception was small, close friends and family, good food, better wine, which Olive could finally enjoy again. Olive's students performed poems they had written for the occasion. Rachel gave a toast about how Dalton had been a workaholic robot until Olive brought him back to life. Julian reluctantly admitted he'd been wrong about them. Denise pulled Olive aside during the dancing. Your father would be so proud of you, of the bookstore, of your family. You chose your own path and made it work. That's all he ever wanted for you. Thanks, Mom. That means everything. And Dalton, he's good to you. He sees you. That's what matters. Later, dancing with her husband, Olive looked around at their gathered loved ones, at Elena sleeping peacefully in her grandmother's arms, at the bookstore that had started everything, and felt overwhelmed with gratitude. What are you thinking? Dalton asked. That I almost missed this. I almost pushed you away and lost everything. But you didn't. You were brave. You chose to trust. We both were. We both did. They swayed together. The world reduced to this moment, this love, this life they'd built together. No regrets? He asked. Not a single one. Good. Because I plan on spending the next 60 years proving you made the right choice. Only 60? Fine. 80. I'll take excellent care of myself. She laughed, pressing her face into his shoulder. I love you, Dalton Pierce. I love you, Olive Pierce. Smith Pierce. We agreed on Smith Pierce. Right. I love you, Olive Smith Pierce, my brilliant, stubborn, extraordinary wife. Better. They danced until Elena demanded to be fed, until the guests started leaving, until it was just their family, Dalton, Olive, and Elena, alone in the bookstore where it had all begun. Ready to go home? Dalton asked. I'm already home, Olive said, looking at her husband and daughter. Wherever you two are, that's home. He kissed her softly. Then let's go home together. They gathered their daughter, said goodbye to Pages and Purpose, and walked out into the Chicago night. Their life was just beginning, messy and imperfect and absolutely beautiful, full of love, laughter, midnight feedings, and poetry workshops, built on trust and choice and the courage to let someone in. Olive had spent so long running from love, terrified of losing herself. But with Dalton, she'd discovered the truth. Real love didn't diminish you. It expanded you. It made space for both people to be fully themselves while creating something new together. She'd chosen the bookstore over security once, chosen herself when everyone said she was wrong, and now she'd chosen love. Scary, vulnerable, all-consuming love, and it was the best choice she'd ever made. Remember, love isn't about losing yourself. It's about finding someone who helps you become more fully who you are. It's about trusting someone enough to show them your wounds and believing they'll help you heal instead of making them worse. It's about choosing courage over fear, even when every instinct screams to run. Olive and Dalton learned that the hardest battles are often with ourselves, our fears, our walls, our certainty that we don't deserve the love we crave. But when you find someone who sees you completely and loves what they find, who chooses you even when you're difficult, who builds a life that honors both your dreams, that's worth every risk. Have you ever run from something you wanted because you were too scared to reach for it? Have you ever had someone love you through your walls until you finally felt safe enough to let them in? Share your story in the comments. I love hearing from you. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button so you don't miss tomorrow's story about second chances, unexpected reunions, and the courage it takes to forgive. Until then, remember, you are worthy of a love that stays, that fights for you, that chooses you every single day. You are worthy of your own beautiful, imperfect, extraordinary love story.